The void was too quiet. Commander Jacob Hale stood at the forward viewport of the USS Resolute, his hands clasped behind his back, his reflection ghostly against the sea of stars. The glow of Saturn's rings cast a pale shimmer across his face, making him look almost spectral, a soldier carved out of iron and shadow. Beyond the window, there was no motion, no sound, but Hale knew death was coming. Status? His voice broke the silence. From the tactical pit, Lieutenant Sarah Monroe's fingers danced over her console, her brown hair damp with sweat despite the cool air. Valkyrie battle group still closing, sir. Estimated time to engagement, 11 minutes. Hale didn't nod. He didn't blink. He just kept staring out into the dark. The Valkyrie were not just another hostile fleet. They were the hammer of the galaxy, the reapers of countless worlds. 17 ships, 3 destroyers, 2 carriers, a swarm of smaller escorts, all cutting through space in a perfect predatory formation. They had crushed the Thalnari Empire in a single campaign. They had burned the Rhynac colonies until the skies glowed. And now, for reasons no one fully understood, they had come for Earth. Captain Elias Ward stepped onto the bridge, his boots silent on the deck plating. He was an older man, silver threading through his close-cropped hair, but there was nothing soft about him. Years of diplomacy had honed him into a man who weighed every word like ammunition. "They've ignored every hailing attempt," Ward said quietly. "They won't talk," Hale replied, his tone flat. Ward studied him for a long moment. "And yet you sent the broadcast anyway." Hale finally turned from the window. His expression was carved from stone, but his blue eyes burned like live coals. "They needed to hear it," Hale said. Ward gave a humorless smile. "You think an enemy that burns planets alive cares about warnings?" "No," Hale admitted. "But they'll remember we didn't beg." The bridge was quiet for a moment. Only the low hum of the ship's reactors filled the air. Monroe's voice broke the silence. "Sir, full spectrum transmission complete. They got the message on every channel we had." "Good," Hale said. He glanced around the bridge, letting his gaze pass over every face. Young ensigns, veteran gunnery chiefs, technicians clutching tools with white-knuckled grips. He saw fear in their eyes, but also something harder. Something sharper. Resolve. They all knew what was coming. The ship's AI spoke then, its smooth synthetic tone utterly calm, almost eerily so. "Attention, enemy fleet will reach weapons range in 2 minutes." Hale exhaled through his nose. 2 minutes. 2 minutes until 17 alien warships opened fire. 2 minutes until the battle that would decide whether Earth lived or died. He moved to the center of the bridge, his voice steady but carrying the weight of iron. "All hands," Hale said. "Battle stations." Alarms flared red across the ship. Bulkhead doors sealed. Weapon crews scrambled to their stations. Medical bays prepped for casualties. The Resolute became a fortress, bracing for the storm. When the first Valkyrie salvo came, it was like the universe itself exhaled fire. Blue-white energy lances streaked across the void, tearing through the dark with blinding brilliance. The Resolute's shields flared as the impact struck, the entire ship shuddered as though punched by a giant's fist. "Shields holding," Monroe reported, her voice tight. 87%. "Return fire." Hale barked. The Resolute's forward batteries roared to life. Massive tungsten slugs screamed from the ship's railguns at near-relativistic velocity, crossing the void in seconds. The first hit struck a Valkyrie corvette dead center. The ship disintegrated in a burst of molten metal and venting plasma, spinning into 2 ragged halves. A cheer rose on the bridge, brief, fierce, defiant. "Don't celebrate yet," Hale growled. "There are 16 more." The Valkyrie formation adjusted instantly, no panic, no hesitation. Their return fire was surgical, hammering the Resolute's shields again and again. The deck trembled under Hale's boots. Sparks rained from an overhead conduit as a power relay blew. "Shields at 60%. Monroe shouted. "Reroute auxiliary power." Hale ordered. "Hold them together." Deep in the belly of the ship,
Engineers scrambled to comply, diverting reactor output, shunting damaged circuits offline.
The ship groaned, but the shields flared bright again, holding against another barrage.
For 30 long minutes, the battle raged.
The Resolute fought like a cornered lion, claws bared, teeth sunk deep into the enemy.
Railgun fire tore through another corvette, then a frigate. Missile volleys bloomed into blossoms of fire against alien shields. But the Valkyrie pressed in closer, their weapons relentless. On Deck 4, a plasma strike breached the hull.
Emergency bulkheads slammed shut just in time, sealing off the section, but not before 10 crew members were vented into the void. On the bridge, Hale's jaw was clenched so tight it hurt. He would not break. He would not blink. Then, suddenly, the enemy fire stopped. For a heartbeat, there was only silence, broken only by the groan of the ship's systems and the hiss of fire suppression foam flooding the smoldering air.
Monroe blinked at her console.
"Sir, the Valkyrie are powering down weapons."
Ward frowned. "Pulling back?" "No," Monroe said. Her voice dropped. "They're hailing us."
The bridge went still.
No one spoke.
"Put it through," Hale said finally. The screen flickered to life, and for the first time, Hale saw the enemy face to face. The Valkyrie commander's skin was pale and scaled, its eyes deep black mirrors that reflected no light. Its expression was unreadable, alien, but there was no mistaking the intelligence behind those eyes.
"Human commander," it said, its voice like ice over steel.
"You fight harder than most." Hale stepped closer to the screen, every muscle in his body coiled tight.
"We warned you," he said.
His voice was quiet, but it carried the weight of a man who had no intention of yielding.
"We told you we don't surrender."
The alien tilted its head slightly, as if examining a puzzle.
"We have fought many species.
They begged for mercy. They destroyed their own worlds rather than resist.
But you."
It leaned closer. "You fight with no hope of victory." Hale's lips curled into something halfway between a snarl and a smile.
"Hope," he said, "isn't something you can burn." For a long moment, neither spoke.
Then, with a slow, deliberate motion, the alien nodded once.
"Interesting."
And the screen went black. A beat later, the enemy ship's powered weapons back online, but now they formed into a new attack pattern, one tighter, more precise.
"They're coming back," Monroe whispered.
"No," Hale said, his voice grim. His eyes stayed locked on the stars as if daring the darkness to strike.
"They're coming to test us." The second wave came without warning.
There was no time for speeches, no time for rallying cries. The Valkyrie came back like predators who had tasted blood and wanted more. The Resolute's shields flared white as energy lances hammered them, shaking the entire ship like a ragdoll in a storm.
Shields collapsing. Lieutenant Sarah Monroe shouted over the cacophony. 30%, 20. The bridge went dark for a half second as the ship's power grid rerouted. Then the lights snapped back on.
"Shield failure imminent," the AI intoned calmly, as though it were announcing a weather report.
"Redirect all auxiliary power to shields." Hale barked. "Already done." Monroe yelled. "It's not enough."
The next barrage punched through.
The deck lurched violently.
Alarms screamed as atmosphere vented from Deck 3.
Somewhere deep in the ship, a hull plate tore free with a metallic shriek. Bulkhead sealed, an ensign reported, voice shaking. Casualties reported, multiple.
"Get damage control teams down there," Hale ordered. Captain Elias Ward gripped the console so tightly his knuckles turned white.
"Jacob, we can't keep this up."
"We hold," Hale said through gritted teeth. The crew fought like demons.
Damage control teams raced through smoke-filled corridors, sealing ruptures, and dragging wounded shipmates to medbays.
In the gunnery decks, crews reloaded railgun slugs by hand when the autoloaders jammed, their arms slick with sweat and blood. On the flight deck, a squadron of interceptors launched, screaming out into the void like angry hornets, harassing the Valkyrie flanks with missile runs that bought precious seconds. Each second cost lives. The USS Franklin, their sister ship, wasn't so lucky. Hale watched on the tactical display as the Franklin's reactor went critical, the ship splitting in two in a silent blossom of fire and debris. Dozens of escape pods launched, but only a handful escaped before the enemy fighters picked them off one by one. Hale's jaw clenched. He knew every name on the Franklin's crew list. And now most of them were gone. By the fourth hour of combat, the Resolute was half crippled. 3 decks were sealed off due to decompression. 2 of their 6 railguns were offline. Casualty reports filled Hale's datapad like a grim drumbeat. Chief Gunnery Officer Daniels, Kia. Lieutenant Perez, missing, presumed dead. Engineering Section Beta, total loss. Hale stood at the center of the bridge, his uniform streaked with soot, his hair matted to his forehead with sweat. Every muscle in his body screamed from hours of bracing against impacts, but his eyes burned bright. The Valkyrie kept coming. And then, suddenly, like before, they stopped. Their fleet pulled back, drifting just beyond weapons range. Not retreating. Not fleeing. Just waiting. Monroe's voice was barely above a whisper. "Sir, they've stopped firing." Ward exhaled. "They're giving us a chance to surrender." Or, Hale said darkly, "they're enjoying the view." Moments later, the calm channel lit up. The alien commander's face appeared on the screen again, its black mirror eyes gleaming with something that might have been amusement. "Human commander," it said, its voice calm. "You have fought well. You have cost us lives. But your resistance is meaningless. You cannot win. Then why aren't we dead?" Hale shot back. The alien tilted its head. "Because we offer you mercy. Surrender now, and we will spare what remains of your fleet. Your species will survive as subjects of the Valkyrie Dominion." The bridge was silent. Crew members turned to Hale, waiting for his reply. He stepped closer to the screen, his face inches from the feed. "No," he said. The alien's pupils contracted, almost reptilian. "You would choose extinction?" Hale's voice was low, controlled, each word cutting like a blade. "We don't choose extinction. We choose freedom. And we will die before we give it up." The alien commander regarded him for a long moment, unblinking. Then it spoke, its voice quieter. "You fight without hope. That is dangerous." "Hope," Hale said, "isn't optional. It's who we are." The alien's expression did not change, but its ship's powered weapons online again. "Then you will all die." The screen went black. Ward turned on Hale. "You just doomed us all." "No," Hale said, his voice like steel. "I just told them the truth." The next wave hit harder than anything before. The Valkyrie weren't just attacking now, they were dissecting the Resolute. Their fire was calculated, precision strikes designed to disable engines, targeting sensors, power grids. Every hit pushed the crew closer to the breaking point. In the gunnery decks, the surviving crew fought until their arms gave out, swapping out barrels by hand when they overheated. In engineering, technicians worked in choking smoke, rerouting power through jury-rigged conduits, electrocuting themselves more than once to keep the reactors online. On the bridge, Hale stood like a statue, calling out firing solutions, coordinating missile salvos, never letting his voice crack. Then, against all odds, they scored a breakthrough. One of the destroyers, the largest ship in the enemy formation, took a direct hit from a full railgun volley. Its shields failed, its engines flared, and then it exploded in a chain reaction that lit up the entire battlespace. A cheer went up from the crew. But the celebration was short-lived. Another strike rocked the Resolute, and this one took out their portside reactor. "Containment breach!" Monroe cried. "Shut it down!" Hale barked. "Already shut," she shouted back. "We just lost half our power grid." For a moment, the bridge was lit only by emergency lights. The Resolute drifted, dead in space. The Valkyrie closed in for the kill. And then, salvation. New contacts lit up the tactical display. 4 human cruisers. 2 destroyers. The Earth Defense Fleet had finally arrived. They came in guns blazing, missiles streaking across the void, forcing the Valkyrie to turn and face the new threat. For the first time since the battle began, the enemy formation wavered. And then, to everyone's shock, they retreated. Not scattered, not routed, but a clean, controlled withdrawal into deep space. The bridge was silent, stunned. "They're leaving," Monroe said in disbelief. Hale didn't smile. Didn't relax. "They'll be back," he said quietly. But for now, Earth had survived. The stars were quiet again. The USS Resolute drifted through the void like a wounded animal, her hull blackened and scarred, plating scorched from nose to stern. Entire sections of the ship were sealed behind emergency bulkheads, still venting atmosphere into the void. Inside, the air was thick with the smell of burnt circuitry and disinfectant. The medbays were overflowing. Corridors were lined with wounded crew lying on stretchers. And yet, they had survived. Commander Jacob Hale stood on the observation deck, his hands gripping the railing so tightly his knuckles turned white. Below him, Earth floated in silence, the blue-green world looking impossibly serene, as if it had no idea how close it had come to annihilation. Behind him, the soft hiss of the hatch opening broke the quiet. Captain Elias Ward stepped in. His face was lined, exhausted, his uniform soot-stained. He moved slowly, like a man who had aged years in the past 24 hours. "Funeral details ready," Ward said quietly. Hale nodded once. Together, they walked to the launch bay. The bay doors were open to the stars, protected only by a thin containment field. Rows of flag-draped caskets lined the deck, some with names etched into the plates, others marked unknown. The silence was so heavy it felt like a physical weight pressing down on the survivors gathered there. Hale stepped forward. He wasn't a man who gave speeches often, but this one mattered. "These men and women," Hale began, his voice low but carrying across the bay, "stood here with us when the sky was falling. They didn't flinch. They didn't run. They gave everything they had, and more." He paused, letting the weight of the words hang in the air. "The enemy tried to break us," he continued, his voice sharpening. "They thought they could erase hope. But every name you see here, every soul we laid to rest today, they proved the enemy wrong." He looked around at the gathered crew, meeting as many eyes as he could. "They are gone," Hale said, softer now. "But what they stood for, that still lives. As long as one of us draws breath, as long as one of us remembers, hope survives." The launch officer stepped forward, saluting. "Ready, sir." Hale nodded. One by one, the caskets slid out into the void, floating like silent sentinels before the containment field disengaged. Then, with a soft hiss, they were released, drifting toward the distant stars. No one spoke. For a long moment, the crew just stood there, heads bowed, the only sound the faint hum of the engines. Ward finally stepped up beside Hale. "It's over. For now." Hale's jaw tightened. "No," he said. "It's just beginning." Hours later, Hale stood on the bridge again, staring at the tactical display. The system was clear now, no enemy contacts, no sign of pursuit. But he knew better. The Valkyrie hadn't been defeated. They had chosen to leave. And that meant they'd be back. Monroe approached quietly, a datapad in hand. Her hair was matted, a strip of gauze around her temple, but her eyes were steady. "Latest casualty report," she said, passing the pad. Hale scanned it. His stomach tightened. Over half the crew dead or wounded. He set the pad down and looked out at the stars again. "This ship shouldn't even be flying," Monroe said softly. "She's still here," Hale replied. "So are we," she said. For the first time since the battle began, Hale allowed himself the faintest of smiles. "Yeah," he said. "We are." Far across the galaxy, in the heart of Valkyrie space, the War Council convened. The chamber was vast and cold, lit by pale blue fire. The Valkyrie commander, the same one who had spoken with Hale, knelt before the High Warlord. "You withdrew," the Warlord said, his voice like grinding stone. "Explain." The commander raised his head. "These humans," he said, "are not like the others we have crushed. They fought with no hope of victory, yet they would not yield. Even when their deaths were certain, they resisted. Murmurs rippled through the council chamber. They are primitives, another warlord hissed. They have no empire. No fleets worthy of the name. Why should we fear them? Because, the commander said slowly, they are dangerous. Not because of their weapons. Because of their will. He replayed the human transmission, the one Hale had sent before the first shot was fired. Humanity does not yield. If you attack Earth, you'll regret it. The chamber was silent when the message ended. This was not arrogance, the commander said. It was truth. The High Warlord considered this for a long moment before finally speaking. Then we will not attack them again, he said. For now. The order was recorded and sealed. Back aboard the Resolute, Hale stood once more at the forward viewport. The ship was still limping, still scarred, but alive. Ward joined him, hands clasped behind his back. They'll come again, Ward said. Yes, Hale said. Ward frowned. Then what was the point of all this? All this blood, all this loss? Hale turned to face him, his blue eyes clear and unwavering. The point, he said, is that they'll never forget what happened here. They came expecting fear. They left knowing what we are. Ward studied him for a long moment. Then, slowly, he nodded. Hale turned back to the viewport, speaking almost to himself. We are not just flesh and blood. We are hope. And hope doesn't surrender. Outside, the stars burned bright, cold, distant, eternal. And somewhere, in the deep black of space, the message continued to echo. Do not attack the humans. They will never surrender hope.